So if you've looked at part 1, you know how to complete the square for a quadratic equation like this. And to be clear, the process you learned in part 1 only works for a quadratic equation which starts with x squared. But what if our equation isn't simply x squared? Perhaps it's an equation like this, 2x squared. What do we do? Well, it's quite simple. We factorise the x squared coefficient from the first two terms. The x squared coefficient here is 2, so I'll factorise out 2 from the first two terms. Now, as a quick check, I can expand the brackets out to ensure I get back to the first equation. And I can see 2x squared plus 8x. So this is correct. And you should always do this. This simple step has given me, inside the brackets, just what I wanted. A quadratic with a simple x squared term. Write out the expression you have inside the brackets. And use the technique you should be familiar with to write it out in completed squared form. Now take my advice and do this separately away from the main work. It will avoid confusion. Half the b coefficient. I'll square that. And we're done. Now I can return to the main problem and write what's in the bracket in its new completed squared form. The final step is to expand this bracket. Watch carefully what I do here because it's easier than you think. I'm going to write in the 2 arrows because it will help remind you what you're trying to achieve. I multiply the first term, but actually I don't do much. I'm just going to write the number in front of this first term, which was the x plus 2 squared. And then I multiply the second term, but this time I actually carry out the multiplication. And of course, I've still got this plus 4 on the end. Finally, I collect like terms, and I'm done. Here's another. Again, this isn't a straightforward x squared quadratic equation, so we've got to use our method. We look at the x squared coefficient, which is minus 3, and we'll factorise this out of the first two terms. If you're not confident with factorising, it would be easy to go wrong here. But again, I'm going to check. Minus 3x squared plus 9x. So I'm confident that this is correct. And then I'm going to take what I've got in the brackets and separately, to avoid confusion, I'm going to complete the square here in just the way you've been taught in part 1. Half the b coefficient, and then I'm going to square this. You can work with decimals, particularly if you've got a calculator if you prefer. And having successfully completed the square, I can return this to the bracket. Replacing what I have in the bracket with this. Now I'm going to put my arrows in because I'm going to expand out this bracket here, the first term and the second term. And remember, the first multiplication, I make life very easy for myself because I don't actually carry out the multiplication. I'll just park the -3 in front. But the second one, I will actually carry out the multiplication. And again, you can use a calculator here if it suits, or if you're able to, depending on the paper. And so the last step really is to collect these like terms. And we're done.